I haven't spoken to my family in a few years. Why? Well, because my fiance's family and my family are basically town rivals. They both have a farm, and they tried to make a deal with each other and join forces and make one big farm. But of course, my father just has to go out of his way to ruin this and ruin everything. So I've been no contact with him for quite some time. However, my wedding's coming up, and I decide, against my fiance's better judgment, to invite my family. And oh boy, it might come back to sting me in the butt. I'm 34 female. I'm engaged to my fiance, 45 male. We've been dating for 13 years. So, this engagement came as a surprise to literally no one. But both of our families are acting like the sky's falling or something, and it's really annoying to be in the middle of it. Our families have a pretty long history. We grew up in a small farming town, and the families have pretty much been fighting for work since the Great Depression. So, things have always been tense, but over the last 10 years, it's gotten so much worse. There's always tension between the families, a sort of rivalry, that dated back to my great-great-great-great-great-grandparents or something like that, but it was never insane. It was like a sibling rivalry, but when my fiancé and I started dating, things notched up another level. The age gap between my fiancé and I is pretty significant, and my family was sure that he was taking advantage of me, because we started dating when I was 22 and he was 33. It caused quite a scandal in our town, but luckily, neither of us were living there at the time. We were never close as kids because he was so much older than me, but we knew each other. Once we met by chance in the city when we both lived there, we just reconnected, and oh my, sparks flew. After it was made obvious that our relationship was serious, our families did seem to bury the hatchet for a little while. Things got a lot friendlier, and I even got pretty close to his mother for a year or two. But that's when everything kind of went pear-shaped. See, our fathers seemed to think that it would be a good idea to combine the efforts so that they could sell to bigger marketplaces. Our parents both grew a lot of crops and have been in competition for as long as anybody can remember, but it seemed like our relationship kind of brought generational beef to an end. Neither family was able to keep up with the number of crops these industrial farms could churn out, so the business had been failing for quite some time. But the idea was that if they combined their farms, they would be able to get a lot more business with a lot better prices. The problem arose when it was time to sign the contracts. See, my cousin is a lawyer, so he drew them up, and apparently there was a distinct difference in the percentage of profits each family was getting. I think originally it had been agreed that everything would be split 50-50, but apparently my dad was not happy with that. See, my family owns about 2 acres more than my fiance's family, so my father decided that he deserved more of the money, seeing as he was putting up more merchandise. Obviously, this did not go down well with my fiance's father, so the entire thing was scrapped, but now the bad blood between our families has intensified to a level I reckon even our great-great-grandparents would consider unreasonable. My dad thinks that his father tried to trick him into doing more of the work for less money, and his dad thinks that my dad tried to pull the wool over his eyes, and accused him of hiring my cousin to draw up the contracts, so that he would have an advantage in the deal. The problem is this: my future father-in-law is absolutely right. It's obvious to everyone that my father was just taking a chance and hoping that nobody would read through the contract completely, but he failed, and now won't take responsibility for it. It's obvious to everyone, but my family likes to pretend that they don't know. My cousins, my uncles, my brothers and sisters, when the deal was canceled, they went all about the town telling anyone who would listen that my fiance's families are liars and cheats. In retaliation, my fiance's entire family has gone around the town telling all the same people that my father tried to cut them out of the deal and tried to steal their hard-earned money. As the years have gone by, there's been a lot of revisions to the story, and a lot of different people making up their own version, so no one in the town really knows what the truth actually is, unfortunately. It's been 10 years, and it's sort of become an old family story that no one really knows the origin of. But my father is still insistent that he didn't do anything wrong. The only reason I know what exactly happened was because I was right in the middle of it. The entire thing caused a lot of issues in my relationship with my fiance. We've been together for 3 years at that point, and we're talking about marriage pretty seriously. But that fight between our families really pushed us apart for a little while. He wanted me to denounce my family, and I simply refused to do it, which he didn't like. Well, it wasn't good enough for him that I admitted in private that my father was in the wrong. He wanted me to make a statement or something as if I was a public figure. I do understand where he's coming from. I mean, I have a lot more family than him. So the story that most people were hearing was the one that painted his family as the villains. But I wasn't about to betray my family. Honestly, I just wanted to completely stay out of it. So, I wanted nothing to do with my own family, and I hoped that he would feel the same, and we could just completely divorce ourselves from the situation, but he wasn't having it, so we had to come to an agreement that we would not mention the situation between our families at home, because we would always just end up fighting anyways. After everything that happened, each family sort of tried to take over us as their own. My fiance's family pretty much adopted me against my will, calling me one of theirs. I think they wanted to give the impression that we believed their story, and it was sort of a screw you to each other. My fiance's family seemed to get a real sense of satisfaction every time I went to visit them. They felt like it was me drawing a line in the sand and taking their side, but I really wasn't. My fiance's mom was constantly posting pictures of me on her social media, and it would take a fool not to notice why she was doing it. So, my relationship with my own family ended up suffering. I wasn't invited to family functions or any family gatherings. I wasn't invited anywhere because they felt like I'd betrayed them. I haven't even seen my own parents in 3 years. They've pretty much made it clear that they want nothing to do with me. The idea of my own family not just being at my wedding hurts more than I can say, though. I love my fiance's family, and I appreciate that they've taken me in as their own. They don't hold my father's actions against me, and they only try to use my presence against my family on rare occasions these days. But, of course, I miss my own family. These people are great and all, and I love them dearly, but they aren't the people I grew up with. In fact, my fiance's sister and I had a bad relationship in high school because of all the tension in our families. We're close as anything now, but I still wish I could have, been the people who raised me by my side right now. It's almost time to start sending out invitations to the wedding, and I've been in hysterics trying to figure out if I should invite my family to the wedding or not. On one hand, I'm angry that they've pretty much disowned me, but on the other hand, I'm hopeful that maybe if I do invite them, it'll bring us close again. I know it's probably a dumb hope. They've made it clear that they don't consider me family anymore, but I can't help myself. In my head, I have this image of a fairy tale wedding, where my fiancé and I are the catalyst that brings our families together. In my head, I can see our fathers hugging and buying the hatchet or something. It's completely ridiculous, and intellectually I know that it's just not going to happen, but I just can't let go of what if. So, my fiancé's pretty much leaving the wedding planning to me, as well as the invitations. He refuses to say what he thinks I should do, which I appreciate in a way, but I also hate it. He doesn't want to influence my decisions, but a part of me just wants him to tell me what to do so I can stop agonizing over this. I don't even know what my biggest fear is. that I send the invitations out to my family and they tell me to go to heck. Or they agree to come to the wedding and there's a brawl in the middle of the dance floor. Both of our fathers are prone to fighting when they've been drinking, and putting them together at such a time would just be asking for trouble. I keep going back and forth on what I actually want to do. I want them there, of course. I want my father to walk me down the aisle. I want my sister to be my maid of honor, and my mother to help me do my makeup. But I'm terrified of rejection. If I send the invitations, the ball is in their court, and they have the power to really hurt me. These past few years, our relationship has kind of been in limbo. They don't call me, I don't call them. They don't text me, I don't text them. I avoid going into town whenever my fiance and I am visiting his family in case I run into my own or any of my family members. I haven't made the first move, and neither have they. In my head, if I don't try to contact them, they can't ignore me. So we still have a relationship. Who knows? Maybe they're thinking the exact same thing and scared that I don't want to be a part of their family anymore. But I'm just scared. If they don't want to come, if they ignore my messages, or worse, get mad at me, the line is drawn in the sand, and I'm no longer a part of their family. I'd much rather continue being oblivious and pretending that we just lost touch than have to admit they don't love me anymore. I've said all this to my fiance, but he still won't tell me his opinion, and that's why I'm just pouring my heart out here on a burner account. I really need some advice. I know what I want to do. I want to invite them. I want them to be overjoyed to come, but I just need help taking the first step. I need to man up and just throw down the gauntlet and let the ball be in their court, because right now it's hanging in the air, not daring to land anywhere. Update number 1, I did it. Yeah, I did it. I bit the bullet. I manned up. I did it. I sent the invitations. Now we wait. They were only sent yesterday, so I doubt anyone's actually gotten them yet, but in my head they're already in the trash can. And the entire family's gossiping about my audacity to invite them. My fiancé says I did well. It's nice to have him on my side with this, but his family's furiated. And I know it. I was at lunch with my future sister and mother-in-laws the other day, and they were trying to bring up the subject as subtly as they could. They really were trying their best, which I appreciate. They asked what my mother was planning on wearing to the ceremony, disguising their question as girl talk. Well, I knew that they were just doing this right away. I just said it straight out. I said that I didn't even know if she was coming, that I've been sending out the invitations next day, and I was hoping that she would RSVP. They seemed a little deflated after I said it, and I could tell right away that they were hoping I would not invite them. They got a little cold towards me after that, I'll admit, but hey, I don't really blame them. The bad blood between our families is just so intense, and over the past 10 years since the whole business deal fell through, things have just gotten tense and tenser. Every few weeks, I hear about a drunken fight in the one bar in town where my little cousin ends up throwing fists at my fiance's nephews. It's always just seeming to be my family that starts the fight, and his that are the victims. Honestly, I don't know if that's actually true or if the information's just biased because I'm hearing it from him. Honestly, it could go either way. His family's likely to get a little mouthy once they have a few drinks in them anyways, and mine are just prone to punching first, asking questions later. The way he tells it, my family just rolls up on him and starts attacking without any being provoked. And I know that's not true, but I don't hold it against him. I don't doubt that he gets the story from his mother, who gets it from her daughter, who gets it from her sons. The information goes through a lot of people before it reaches me, and all have a reason to skew it one way or the other. I wish that I was still in contact with my own family to get their side of things, but I doubt it would be any less biased than what I'm told anyways. I bet, according to them, the boys only started the fight to defend the family's honor after my fiance's nephews were being disrespectful. It's exhausting knowing that all this is still going on, but I guess I'm used to it by now. All I can do at this point is just hope that my family accepts the olive branch and that I'm extended to them and agree to come to the wedding. I'm hoping that their love for me is stronger than their hatred for these people who, in all honesty, they really did try to trick. Update number 2. My family's coming to the wedding and I'm ecstatic right now. It feels like I could fly. Every single person I sent an invitation to's contacted me and told me that they would be happy to come. I'm overjoyed. Even though I can remember what my anxiety was about, I feel like I was just completely overreacting, and I'm a little embarrassed to be honest with you. I should have known that my family would not just completely abandon me. I grew up with these people. My mom would not attend my wedding over a petty feud that doesn't even mean anything. My fiancé is a little upset, but he's pretending not to be. I think he was hoping that they all say no, just so that we could avoid the whole awkwardness of having both of our families in one room. I don't hold that against him. I understand where he's coming from, but I do think that it's a little selfish. Obviously, he hasn't said anything other than pretending to be happy for me. But you don't date someone for 13 years and not know when they're trying to hide their disappointment. His mom and sister, on the other hand, are quite open about their annoyance. Back when everything was just a maybe, and they were pretty sure that my family had disowned me, they kept their hope to themselves that my family would tell me to go to heck. But now that it's confirmed that they'll be in attendance to the wedding, oh boy, they are not happy. I wish there was something I could say to make them understand. I know they feel a little betrayed. They're the ones who have pretty much been my family for the past few years, when my parents wanted nothing to do with me. And yeah, I know it upsets them that I don't see them as my real family, but I can't help it. Things have been a little awkward between us since my family confirmed they were coming, but I've been trying to work past it. Whenever the subject comes up, I just start talking about something else. They're both super interested in the whole planning and preparation for the wedding, so usually I can just start talking about seating arrangements, centerpieces, and they just perk right up. I haven't talked to my mom in about 3 years now, but she sent me a text yesterday and asked if I wanted to have lunch with her. Oh, obviously I accepted. I don't even know how she got my number, seeing as it's changed in the past few years, but I'm taking that as a sign of her determination to see me. I know I'm probably reading into everything a little too much, and I'm trying to dial back my excitement so that I don't end up disappointed if things go wrong. But it's hard not to be optimistic. It feels like I finally got my family back after such a long time. Part of me doesn't want to come on too strong. Doesn't want to make them think that working for it is revenge for the way they cut me out so easily. But I know that's stupid. This isn't a boy I want to like me. It's my mom, my dad, my siblings, aunts, and cousins. Everything's going to be fine. Update number 3. So I saw my mother. My little sister came too. It was amazing. It felt like we had so much to catch up on, but it also felt like they hadn't changed a bit. My mom's hair has been the same since the 80s, so it wasn't like I didn't recognize her, but it still felt weird walking up to her. It was a little awkward at first. None of us really knew what to do. No one knew if we were supposed to hug or shake hands or what, but after the initial awkwardness, things settled down. It was just like old times, and there was so much to talk about that the conversation never went dry. We sort of danced around the awkward topics, like them practically disowning me. And these things definitely need to be talked about, and I have a lot to say about it. But this is not the time to do that right now. There's no point in deliberately reconnecting with them if I'm just going to start a fight as soon as we see each other. The hard conversations can wait until after the wedding. Right now, I'm just happy to see them. happy to know that they don't hate me. Things got a little awkward towards the end when Mom asked about my wedding dress. I was describing it in detail, but I accidentally let slip that my fiance's mother had been with me when I chose it. I mentioned that she said the dress, well, looked really good with my figure. Things went kind of quiet for a minute or two, but I refused to let myself feel awkward. It's my night to talk about this, and if they're mad that she was at my fitting and they weren't, then they should think about the fact that I'd had my way, they would have been there. It felt like we were just sort of ignoring the elephant in the room. But we moved on to safer topics. If there's one thing I can talk about right now, it's wedding planning. So we talked about the flowers, the menu, color schemes, safe stuff. What did strike me was that the conversation was not as easy as it was with my fiance's family. Sure, there were no awkward silences, and there was also a lot to talk about, so we never ran out of topics. But I did not feel quite as comfortable with my own family as I feel with his. I don't know if it's time we spent apart, underlying resentment, or something like that, but it hurts to notice. I got the impression from the way my mother talked that it was her that was the driving force behind our family reunion. From the way that she was talking, it sounded like Father would have been happily telling me to stick my invitation where the sun doesn't shine. Obviously, Mom didn't say that, but from the way she talked about everything, it was obvious that she had been convincing Father to give things a chance instead of running away. I'm staying hopeful. Things went about as well as one could expect. And better than I was anticipating, to be honest with you. It was hard trying to strike up the balance between not being too optimistic and not imagining the worst. And I think I did pretty well if I do say so myself, all things considered. Now all I have to do is pray that the wedding goes without a hitch. And after that, I can worry about confronting my family for what they did, and the way they've treated me for the past few years. Update number 4. Hey guys, sorry for the late update. I've been a bit busy the last couple of months with the work of the wedding, but I wanted to hop on quickly just to let you all know how things are going. So, the wedding's in 3 days, and we had the rehearsal dinner last night. I wanted some time to rest between the rehearsal and the actual ceremony, so we decided to hold it a little earlier than traditional, and I'm glad that we did. Everything went really well. Don't get me wrong, but I'm exhausted right now. The sheer mental energy of making sure that neither of our family was seated close enough to interact, while also making sure that they felt like they were getting their due respect, was a lot. And as soon as I got home last night, I passed out on the hotel bed without even taking my makeup off. Everybody behaved themselves, thank goodness, and I'm positive that the actual wedding is going to go well. We made sure to keep the young guys away from each other, as we know that they like to fight after a few drinks. And I asked my mother to keep an eye on things for me. She did a great job, and while I was eating, I could see her at her table, and it was hilarious. She looked like she did when I was a kid and I misbehaved, and I knew that she was keeping a tight rein on everybody. Dad would barely look at me. But that's something to deal with when everything's done and we're back from our honeymoon. I think he's still mad at my choice of husband, but I'm not about to let him dictate my life and who I marry. My fiance's family was absolutely wonderful, and I can't express how grateful I am to have them in my life. And during everything, I really noticed that it's my own family who are the aggressors in every situation. At first, I was terrified about each patriarch being in the same room as the other, but my future father-in-law was wonderful, happy, smiling, laughing, even winking at me the entire night. It was my own father who seemed to be a problem. It's weird. I don't know if it's my bias skewing towards my husband's family, because they're the ones who've had my back over the past years. If they're really the better of the bunch, I've always known that my dad is the one who tried to screw them over in the business deal, but I never really noticed just how forgiving my fiance's family is. They took me in with no questions asked. They accepted me as their own. His mother taught me family recipes. They include me in family gatherings, and I'm on the Christmas card list. They've been nothing but kind and gracious. They don't hold what my father did against me. I can't even imagine my own family being so kind. Right, to my fiancé. If they were willing to drop me for their lives, their own daughter, their flesh and blood, imagine how they would treat him if he came to Christmas. I'm trying not to think about this too much, trying to focus on the happy occasion, but hey, it's hard. I feel like I had this kind of idealized version of my family in my head these past 3 years, imagining that they were perfect. Absence makes the heart grow fonder and all that, but seeing them now, I'm realizing just how unforgiving that they really are. I don't even know if I want to keep them in my life after the wedding, to tell you the truth. I have not mentioned this to anybody. Not my fiancé, but it's been on my mind for the past few days. It was nice seeing my mother work so hard to keep everyone in check for my sake, but the contrast between her and my fiancé's mom was absolutely crazy. It looked like my mother was working full-time to keep everybody calm, but when I looked at my future mother-in-law, she was just smiling, having a great time. She didn't need to keep an eye on anyone because she knows that her family is respectable. Everything's just kind of whirlwinding around in my head, and it's getting pretty confusing. I'm really trying to push all of these thoughts down and enjoy my wedding. I'm going to the spa tomorrow with my fiancé's sister, and I might talk to her about this. She's pretty discreet, and I know she'll try to keep her personal biases out of everything. Anyways, thanks for reading this update on my little soap opera of a life. I appreciate all the kind words you guys have had for me, and the advice has really been so solid. Thank you all for taking the time to read this. Update 5. Final update posted by OP. So yeah, I'm done. I'm so done with my family. That's it. We're over. Cutting them off completely. Things at the wedding were going pretty well until the reception. There were the usual wedding hiccups, but we made it through, and as the day went on, no one had broken into a fist fight. So I started to relax. I think that was my biggest mistake of the night. A few hours into the reception, I was dancing with my husband, when suddenly we heard the sound of glass breaking on the floor. We looked around, and what do you know? My cousin's trying to start a fight with his nephew. I looked around to see where my mother was, but she looked like she's had a few too many drinks, so there's no one to intervene. It was a disgusting display of testosterone, and the fact that it was 3 against 1 made me feel sick to my stomach. I went over to try to settle things, and I don't exactly know how it happened, but there ended up being a full-on brawl. It was like something you'd see in a bar. I'm talking fists flying, chairs being kicked around. It was ridiculous. At the point I was screaming at them to stop, I didn't even care what anyone could see me. Eventually, we had to call the cops, and when things were finally split up, I noticed that my dad had punched my father-in-law in the face. My father-in-law has been having health issues, and he's been walking with a cane for the past few months. So, the fact that my father would punch such a weak man was awful to realize. The worst part was that my family seemed to think that I would take their side. One of my cousins has a bloody nose, and everyone was clustering around him, giving me looks as if I was supposed to say something, but I was done. One of my cousins was injured, but my sister-in-law had a fat lip from where a plate had hit her, and my father-in-law had hit his head when he fell. Even after all that, my mother-in-law apologized to me. She actually apologized, and she was worried that they've ruined my wedding. I just burst into tears at that point. My family is simply a bunch of bullies. From what I heard afterward, the whole fight started because my cousins were talking badly about my husband, and one of his nephews tried to stop them. Every single argument between our families has been instigated by my own family. Everything. physical altercation has been their fault, and they couldn't even be on their best behavior for one day of my wedding. They couldn't even give me that courtesy. I'm done. I'm completely finished. I don't care anymore. My husband was mad at first. He thought that I'd take their side. But at this point, there's nothing for me to defend. We just got back from our honeymoon and we put everything aside to have a good time. But now we're back. I'm taking action. I'm going to tell my mom that the way my family behaved, the way they disowned me was disgusting. I'm going to block her number, and this time I'm going to block it for good. All this has just made me realize who my true family is. And to be honest with you, it's the people who supported me through everything, through thick and thin, not the ones who just gave me their DNA. I thought this story was actually rather sad. The fact that OP wanted to be close to her family throughout the whole ordeal, but deep down she just knew they were actually the ones creating all the problems, and it was really her fiance's family that was there for her for years. I'm talking years, when her biological family decided to basically abandon her. So it does leave me with the question, what would you do if you were in OP's position? Would you do what OP did and essentially cut them all off by the end of the story? Go ahead and drop your comments down below, guys. Let's talk about this one. This story was a sticky situation. I don't know how many of you guys have been through something like this, but if anyone's really been no contact for that long and tried to re-enable contact again, how did it go? Drop your experiences down below. Make sure you subscribe, smash that like button. I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a fantastic day, and remember, it's cool to be kind. Peace.